Hi, I'm Guy Powell, and welcome to the next episode of the backstory on the Shroud of Turin. If you haven't already done so, please visit guypowell.com and sign up for more episodes. I am the author of the upcoming book, The Only Witness, a historical fiction tracing a possible history of the Shroud over the last 2 millennia. Today, we'll be speaking with Dr. Joe Bergeron. He's a medical doctor and syndenologist, and he has used his background to understand aspects of the death of Jesus from what is shown on the cloth and what is known historically. There are some incredibly interesting conclusions that come out of his work. So let me tell you a little bit more about Joe. Joe Bergeron, MD, is a specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation. He has written a peer-reviewed article for the Journal of Forensic and Legal Medicine on Jesus's cause of death, and a collaborative article with Gary Habermas, PhD, in the Irish Theological Quarterly on hallucination hypotheses seeking to explain away the resurrection of Jesus. Dr. Bergeron's research also led him to study the Shroud of Turin. His book is the culmination of his research. It's called The Crucifixion of Jesus. A medical doctor examines the death and resurrection of Christ. And here it is. And it's available in Amazon and wherever. Dr. Bergeron lectures in conferences, churches, and universities on the Shroud of Turin and medical perspectives of the crucifixion and the resurrection of Christ. Joe, thank you for being here. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Guy. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Yes, absolutely. So glad to have you. And so Joe is going to actually do a presentation. But before you do that, Joe, tell us your backstory on how you got involved in the Shroud of Turin.
Well, as you said, I'm a practicing physician. I'm a specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation. A lot of folks may not know what that is, and there are a lot of facets to that kind of specialty. My concentration has been in evaluating and treating musculoskeletal injuries, and I've done medical legal work in that regard. And so that's what got me interested in studying the crucifixion of Jesus and the mechanism of Jesus' death and so on. And in the context of doing that, I had to study the Shroud of Turin because it was part of Dr. Barbet's hypothesis that Jesus had suffocated to death. And there are logical problems with that, and that kind of forced me into studying the Shroud of Turin in a way that I hadn't previously been interested in. But I've studied everything I get my hands on about the death and resurrection of Christ, and the Shroud of Turin fell into that study. And so that's how I come to you today, and it's an honor to be with you.
Yeah, fantastic. And yes, Barbet has definitely done quite a bit of work on that. And your conclusions are actually going to be very interesting. And I'm definitely looking forward to learning more about that. So, okay, so the stage is set. The stage is yours. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen, and then I'll let you go. And every once in a while, I'll present a few questions to you.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm going to... everybody wants to know whether the Shroud of Turin is authentic or not. And I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk specifically about the examination of the man, the image of the man, and the examination of the cloth and what it can be objectively seen there. And listeners can form their own conclusion about authenticity. What we're really after is a scientific observation and what we can glean from that, and authenticity becomes a subjective opinion of the listener. And I meet people of every stripe, some that have a very emotional commitment to believing the Shroud of Turin is the burial cloth of Jesus, and credible Christian folks that believe the opposite, and then folks that don't believe anything about it. So what we really want to do is look at the facts, and listeners can come to their own conclusions about the shroud.